Hi, my name is Anil Lewis. I'm the Executive Director of Blindness Initiatives for the National Federation of the Blind, the most transformative membership organization of blind Americans. The unemployment rate of blind Americans has hovered around 70% for decades. The root remains the fears and misconceptions that people have around the capacity of blind people and the lack of knowledge around the tools that blind people use to be competitive every day. Through this series, we hope to educate both blind job seekers and employers about the variety of different careers that blind people are actively pursuing today and the tools and strategies they use to be competitive on the job. We're hoping that this will help put a dent in the unemployment rate and create greater opportunities for blind people. So let's take a look at where the blind work.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our April Where the Blind Work webinar. With the employment rate around 70% in the blind community, the National Federation of the Blind is committed to securing equity and opportunity for all blind people as it relates to employment. We know that blindness is not the characteristic that defines you or our future. Every day, we raise expectations for blind people because we know that low expectations create obstacles between blind people and our dreams. It is the collective power, determination, and diversity that helps us to accomplish all of our dreams. And so we are doing that with this webinar by shattering all of the misconceptions surrounding blindness. So thank you thank you to all of you for attending this webinar tonight. And just a few housekeeping rules before we get started. So firstly, we will have the one cap action that you can access in the Zoom chat. So those of you who need the caption can access that link there. Secondly, we hopefully, in the interest of time, we will try to have questions at the end of the seminar or the webinar, but if not, you can email us at employment@nfb.org. That's employment@nfb.org. If you would like to get further information on our panelists this evening or just about what we're going to be covering tonight. If we do open the space for questions at the end, we will give an opportunity for folks to raise their hand, which we will give folks instructions on that if we have time. Or if you have access to the chat during the webinar, you can submit your question through the chat and we will try to get to your question towards the end of our program. So with further ado, I am now going to introduce our fantastic panelists. Tonight's webinar is all about the the Business Enterprise Program and entrepreneurship. And we have three fabulous panelists who are successful in their own right and happy to share about their professional experience with all of you all. So our first panelist hails from Georgia. She has been a BEP vendor, owner, and operator for under a year now, and is truly making some real strides in this field. So everyone, please give a warm virtual welcome to our first panelist, Miss Shelby Ball.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for inviting me out, Nikki, and greetings to all of my Federation family. As Nikki mentioned, I do reside in Georgia, the great state. I live in the city of Atlanta, well, surrounding suburbs, I should say. But I live with my three boys. I am a mother first before business owner. My sons are 3, 11, and 13. So that's my real job. Outside of that, as Nikki mentioned, I recently became a vendor with the Georgia Business Enterprise Program. My journey started probably about, I'd say, October of 2022 is when I embarked on the training journey, and I completed Georgia's training for business enterprise in February of 2023. The way I kind of found out about BEP, I've known about BEP for years, but the real reason I decided to go on this entrepreneurship journey is just wanting to be able to, give my boys, something to have, to be able to leave them something and, have a legacy and all of that. And my background is in education. And so I went to school for early childhood education, worked in education for many years, but I just felt like I had plateaued. And doing the BEP program for me allows me to just basically be able to give my family that security, of being financially stable and being able to provide. And so, as I mentioned, I went through training here in Georgia, completed the training course, and I immediately started working with another vendor that was already in the program. She's very successful, and she served as one of the most amazing mentors. So I did that from February all the way up through June of last year. While I was working for her, I, still knew out of training, felt ready. I felt, like, okay, I've got this. I still have a lot to learn, but I'm ready to get started. I'm ready to get my feet wet and get in there. And so I went ahead and bid for a facility. It was a snack bar, and in addition to that, a vending machine. And so I did complete the bid process, and I had to write a business plan. I wrote my business plan out, went through an interview process with the panel, and I won the facility my first try. And so that was really, really exciting for me. And that's actually currently where I am placed. I started working the end of July 2023. July 31st was my first day. And so I've been in that facility ever since July 31st. With that journey, the way that Georgia's program works, I know every state does it a little bit different. We had to complete at minimum 6 months in your facility before you can be eligible to be licensed. So when you first bid and you're right out of training, you're what they consider provisional. So I was a provisional vendor. Ideally, you become licensed in 6 months, but for some people, it takes a couple of years. It just depends how you're doing when the state comes in to do your reporting and checking and all of that. And so, lucky me, I was able to become a fully licensed vendor right at the end of my first 6 months in the facility. And so, again, that's what I'm doing with that. Towards actually, right at the completion of my 6 months, I also acquired an additional facility. And so I now have the snack bar along with a micro mart and then some additional vending that goes with that. And so I've been managing both of those locations, of course, with the help of, my employees that I've hired and brought on. And as of recently, am adding some additional vending again as well. And so, just things are really going well. And it's so interesting for me because, again, personally, my passion is working with youth, and it will always be my passion. But I decided to just take this risk because I wanted to, I've always wanted to work for myself, and there's no greater feeling than being your own boss. And so I'm just really, really, really loving this journey so far.
Thank you for sharing, Shelby. Thank you for that. And we'll hear more from Shelby when we get to the questions portion of our webinar. So moving to our next panelist, many of you, especially if you have been around the blind community for a while, are probably familiar with a little business that we know called the AT Guys, who offer the latest and greatest in access tech. And so we are lucky to have the owner of that business joining us tonight for our webinar. Please, everyone, give a warm virtual welcome to JJ Meddaugh out of Michigan.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. It's such a cool idea just to expose and talk about blind people in different careers. So I just really appreciate the opportunity and absolutely agree with what Shelby said. Absolutely. It's so empowering and fun to be an entrepreneur and to own a business and to have that level of control and the opportunities that it creates. So I'll just talk a little bit about my story. AT Guys, kind of backtracking quite a bit. It's been around. Yeah, you're right. It has been around for a minute now. It seems like it was just yesterday, but we were actually founded in 2008, spring of 2008. While I was still in college at the time, I was kind of just graduating out of college. I had previously started a site that many of you had visited over the years called Blind Bargains. At the time, it was a really active site that had a lot of deal posts and news posts. We did a lot, and I also got into doing coverage of conferences and conventions. So in the midst of that, I had a conversation down at the ATIA conference in Orlando, Florida, beginning in 2008 with the representatives from Code Factory, which led to us selling an old piece of phone software called Mobile Speak. This is back when you actually had to pay for software to make your phone talk. Younger kids don't remember. Yes, now it's all built in and free. It's awesome. But back then you had to buy it. And we had a discussion, and we ended up committing to buying some of those to sell. And that was the very first product and the beginning of the AT Guys website. So what we do these days is we sell all sorts of access technology. You covered it quite well there, the latest and the greatest. So everything from both blindness products like phones, like the Blind Shell phone, or Versa paperless slates, but we also sell mainstream products that just happen to be really cool. And one of the things that we've really prioritized over the years is that curation aspect, right? So I mean, we could pick any electronics off the street and sell them, but we like to think that when people come to AT Guys, they know that the products that we have curated are ours. So we really do appreciate, and I think, it's come into that. Over the years, we've learned a lot, and the business has been a journey. The one thing about being a business owner and a small business owner that you learn is not everything is set up for you, right? So if you're working for someone else, you, of course, are pretty much given a task, or you're told a general idea of what your job is to do. Well, as a business owner, you're not told. You can find mentors and other people that have been through this, and you absolutely should. But at the same time, you're figuring a lot of things out. And especially starting out, it's not just figuring things out, it's also figuring things out in a way that is accessible. Take, for instance, a lot of the tasks that we have to do as a business. So whether it's responding to customer emails, shipping out packages, communicating with vendors, reading forms from the government, or filling out government forms, especially in 2008 and even still sometimes in 2024, those tasks are not accessible. So we have to kind of communicate with other business owners. Some might say that you're sharing company secrets, but you know what? I'll talk to any other blind business owner about the tools that they are using, and they'll do the same to me, because we want to make sure we help each other out and find those business tools that are really accessible and usable for us. So one of the big things that we really try to do is we want every axis of our business to be accessible. We don't care what it is. I don't want to get into this position, and I'm not saying it's bad for anyone who does it this way, but I don't want to get into that mindset of, we need to hire the sighted staff to do the paperwork or to do the inventory or the invoicing, because that's just a visual thing. No, for every major aspect of our business, we are going to find a way to make sure that we can do it accessibly. I have nothing against hiring a sighted person if they are a qualified candidate, but our staff right now is all blind people. I have two awesome staff that work with me as well, Michael and Damasi, and if you call in, you'll probably likely talk to them. And so we have a staff of all competent blind people. And that is really important to me. And one of the most empowering things about running a business is not only do we get to sell products and do tech and do all that cool stuff, is we also get to hire other blind people and try to break down, even in a very small part, that unemployment rate and make things that are just a little better and a little more accessible. And as we're doing that, we can work with companies and organizations to make their tools accessible. So to give a recent example, of that over at the CSUN conference in Anaheim, a big technology conference. There's a company called Olark. Olark is one of the many companies that does these live chat boxes that you can put on the bottom of a web page, and then you can talk to someone live. Well, there's a lot of these out there, but if you've tried using some of these chat widgets, you know that some of them are much more accessible than others. Olark has committed to making their chat accessible. They've come a long way to doing that right now. It's live on our site right now. And they have committed to making this work, not just for the customer, right? There are lots of tools that are out there that, oh yeah, we're accessible for, and you start to go ask them, well, okay, what about someone who wants to use this as a business owner? Oh, no. We didn't think of that, because maybe they didn't possibly think that a blind person might actually want to use the back end or the business side of their tools. They'd only focus on the customer side. That's all they thought they needed to do. Olark is one that gets it. And understands that you might have both blind customers and blind employees that are used in the same system, and both the front end and the back end need to be accessible. I'm happy to say that there are more business tools now than there was. There's still a lot of work to do, but for instance, Shopify for e-commerce, which by the way, we're going to be moving to their platform. Quite accessible to play with. Our payroll system, Gusto, quite accessible to use. There's a lot more tools these days that we can use to make things accessible. There are still challenges. I get inaccessible PDF invoices from state government agencies for the blind. And man, it's really kind of a conflict of like, I really want to say something to you right now, and I also want your order in your business. So where's the line for me to tell you, man, you're sending me an inaccessible invoice and you're a state VR agency for the blind? This is ridiculous. But at the same time, we gotta just do what we gotta do. So, bring in sometimes you have to bring in IRA or tools like that. You gotta know, right? So IRA, for instance, still has an offer for business owners sponsored by Intuit. So you can get free IRA minutes if you are the business owner. So we can take advantage of things like that. And of course, things like the Be My AI image recognition tool for doing some of those types of things. Every day is a different day. What is your typical day? If I knew what my typical day was, I'd be able to plan it a lot better. This typical day today, started with me being back in Kalamazoo, answering some emails, figuring out the visuals for our new website, coming over here for a NFB Michigan leadership seminar thing, and then coming up here to do this. One of the cool things about being a business owner is I can do something like a leadership seminar or an NFB event or a sports weekend. I love playing goal ball, and I don't have to worry about missing a day of work. I can, work it around my business schedule because the schedule is the one that I make for myself. So that's obviously a big advantage. But of course, on the converse of that, that also means that you have to work to make money. You can't just expect for a paycheck to be rolling in every Friday or every other Friday. Because if you don't put in the time, well, then you're not going to get any orders for the week because they're just going to dry up. So the flexibility is amazing to have that going. But at the same time, you have to be able to adapt on the fly, be agile, realize that, one thing I'm learning is the bigger you get as a business, and we're still a small business, but the bigger you get as a business, the problems don't go away. The problems actually get bigger because now you have more money that's flying around. You have more people, more systems, more things that can go wrong or can break. So there's a lot to learn. There's always things happening. So you really just need to learn to be agile and adapt. There's a lot more that I can say. I know we're going to have time for questions as well, and I'll certainly give out my contact information at the end as well. But thank you so much for having me on the panel. I love being a business owner. I love sharing those opportunities and some of the tools that we use with anyone else who's interested.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, JJ. And I am sure folks have a lot of questions about starting your own business and really navigating that world as a blind person and doing it successfully. So we'll definitely get to hear from you some more in a little bit. Finally, last but not least, our final panelist hails from Maryland, and they also work as a BEP owner and operator. Everyone, please, please, please give a warm virtual welcome to our final panelist, William Ruffin.
Hey, good evening, everyone. A little bit about myself. I guess I could say I'm a jack of all trades. I have a background in education as well, just like Shelby. But my main focus was special education. But I started my vending journey in 2017 with BEP of Maryland. From there, I basically learned the ins and outs of running like a dry stand, snack stand, coffee shop, cafeteria, and a micro market. And in January 2019, I put in a bid for a dry stand, basically snack stand, and I was awarded it at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in Rockville, Maryland. The store comprised of a lottery machine, a card section with like greeting cards, sorry cards, different holidays, and also they had a lottery machine in there, so I was able to do lottery tickets. It was pretty fun. Always had the same customers. You know, I knew the type of different scratch offs they needed, so that was pretty interesting. And around that time, my first son was due in March, so I moved closer to the area, which was a little expensive, but I said, what's the worst that could happen, you know? And then boom, the pandemic hit. So everyone was sent home, and on the bright side of things, you know, I was able to go back and to my old job and work for a little bit. And also I was able to spend time with my son. So I think that was like the plus side of the whole pandemic thing. But fast forward in November 2024, I was awarded the coffee shop in that same building. And also my second son was born. So it was a roller coaster ride. So it's kind of ironic that every time I get a new facility, I have another child. I say what motivated me to become a vendor was actually a person from NFB named Neil Lewis. I'm sure a lot of y'all recognize him. I remember asking him if there was something I could do to bring in like a little bit more income and just be more independent and get out of my mother's house. And he suggested the BEP program. So, I mean, from there, I was like very interested, and more so because I just wanted to be my own boss as well. So that worked out. I say the only unique challenge that I had faced, you know, being a blind vendor with RP was probably like receiving cash. Because sometimes, you know, my peripherals are just all over the place. So sometimes they would be like high or low with the cash. And I mean, a quick fix for that, like would help me, you know, get over that, would just ask them, would you like to do charge or cash? And that kind of worked out. Um, Overall, I say due to my blindness, I've learned to be more patient with people because things happen all the time, which are out of our control. People come in with all these troubles sometimes, but I always say if you wake up the next day, you get to reset your day, you know. Let's see. To help with my vision acuity, I put all the items in my square in like two rows down the middle that kind of help me and also help my employees, you know, for like to recognize items and just quickly get customers in and out. So let's see. I'm just going through a list of things. Um, I think, yeah, it might be it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing, William. Um,
Thanks.
so can we give a virtual applause to our panelists for their amazing introductions? Thank you all so much. All right, so now we're going to transition to our question and answer portion. So I have a few questions for you all. The first question that I have is, and anyone please feel free to answer, so you all do not have to go in any particular order. But are there any common misconceptions about blind professionals that you would want to address? So what are some misconceptions out there about blind people in the work world that are kind of floating around that we want to take the time to maybe bust some of those myths?
This is Shelby. I'll go. So I hope this answers the question, but I know that a lot of times doing the business enterprise program, I love that JJ touched on this, even though he's not in BEP, but there's the misconception that you have to have sighted help. And that just bugs me. Because you don't. I mean, there's so many workarounds. There's technology out here. I mean, like he said, there's IRA, there's all kinds of, different ways that we can adapt things to be able to work and run a business on our own. And so that irks me. And currently I have 3 employees that kind of rotate through my snack bar, and one of them does help me from time to time with the micro mart as well, but all 3 of them are blind. So when I went through the training program, they kind of impress upon you should really hire a sighted helper, but why? And so I just feel like that's a huge misconception, is that you have to have sighted help.
Thank you for that, Shelby. And you and JJ are absolutely right. I love that your businesses really promote and encourage other blind people to work for you all and be employed by you all, like a business run by all blind people. I think that is fantastic, and it really does shatter those misconceptions around it's not even just maybe sighted people, but it's the idea that having sight, having vision is kind of what is needed to be successful, when it's actually having the access to alternative techniques and technology to be able to get the job done. So thank you for that. Anyone else want to answer that question? Okay, so we'll move on to another question.
Nikki, we have a
yes.
question in the chat. Are we going to take questions later?
We could actually take a question now.
Okay, so the chat question was from Lacey, Amanda Lacey. Without anyone cited there, do people steal stuff from your snack bar?
That's a great question. Would anyone like to answer?
I'll answer the question.
All right.
I noticed that a lot of people, it's just some people, it's just in their nature to steal. Whether you're sighted or not sighted, it's just something they do. I noticed, because in my building, some people do know that I do have a visual impairment, and I noticed they'll like try to hide stuff like out of sight that I don't see it, but I catch it all the time. I'm like, are you gonna pay for that soda? Like, oh yeah. So it happens. It's just, it's just the nature of certain people.
This is JJ. So I think when it comes, I don't have a snack bar, but we have the conventions, and it gets very hectic in the booth. And we learned over the years that we had to have a system, that we couldn't just have all of our stuff sitting out on the table because things would walk. Sighted people would steal something. Blind people would unfortunately steal things sometimes. It happens. So I think we just had to adapt a little bit and kind of come up with a system so we knew where all of our products were at all times, and basically show stuff to people as they asked for them. That's why when you come up to our booth, we won't just have everything just sitting out. Which I know can be a little inaccessible, but of course we're not hiding anything from anyone, but you just have to find little ways to adapt here and there. Unfortunately, theft and loss is a part of any business, blind or sighted, and you pretty much have to account for a few percent of your sales could be that, whether it's theft in person or it's lost packages in the mail.
Yes, and I don't want to harp on that topic, but because I think everything was covered, but I've dealt with this personally as well. But you just, I mean, what you have, what you sell, and it it's in your conscious, like you are just aware. And one of the things that I sell is I do for hot foods, I do hot dogs and smoked sausage every day. And so I know when I go put smoked sausage on the roller, there's 12 that I just put on there. And so I'm constantly counting, okay, I've got 9 left. Okay, I've got, so, you know, you're constantly just doing little mental things throughout the day to stay on top of what's happening and what's going on. And I also, unfortunately, from a realistic experience, have enough common sense to know if you were just standing over at the hot dog roller, unwrapping a piece of foil, and then you come to the counter and tell me you don't, you know, tell me you don't have a hot dog or whatever. But it's just, it's not as, I mean, I guess there's not as much thought that you have to put into it. Just, it comes naturally.
Thank you all for that. You know, those are some great tips to really, you know, help combat theft, and also understanding that, you know, this doesn't just happen to blind business owners. This happens across the board. So understanding this isn't unique to just people who are blind. Unfortunately, that happens across the board. So, and you all seem to have found some really unique ways of ensuring or trying to mitigate that issue. Okay, I think we just had a question in the chat, which seems to be a really good question. Jen, did you get that question?
Sure, I've got it.
And by the way, the voice that you all hear is Jen White, who is a staff at our National Center, who is our Zoom host tonight, folks.
So this, thank you, Nikki. So this question is from Jennifer Bose. It says, anyone, please give an example of a process you figured out how to do, even though a trainer might have advised you that hiring a sighted person to help you with it might be better. I love hearing about how people work around these challenges.
There's lots. Now I don't have, so I didn't necessarily have training when it came into business. Like I said, a lot of it was just figuring things out. So I didn't go through a training program like BEP members would have. But you do often hear of whenever you find instructions for how to do something as a business owner, it's never written from our perspective, right? It's always written from the mainstream perspective. So it's a bit of trial and error. So shipping is a good example. I think of something that I had to figure out early on of how to do it accessibly, right? So how to print out a label and make sure that it had the correct address on it, make sure it was lined up, and then make sure that it was on the correct package. So where you might have an instruction in the mainstream that says, all right, here's some software that will take your website and dump all of today's orders into a file and then print out a bunch of shipping labels and you can just bulk print them. Well, I quickly learned, I tried that a time or two, but then you're like, okay, this is the third label and this is the third, or no. And you as soon as you're off by one, then you have everybody's stuff going to the wrong place. So that doesn't work. So then you realize, okay, well, I need to print them one at a time because then I know this is the correct label for the correct order. So I think a lot of times it's just these little adaptations that you can take a process that's being written from a sighted perspective, a visual perspective, and then figure out, all right, how can I take that same thing and make it work for me? And again, also talking to other blind business owners who have shipped product and, to figure out how can we do this independently in a way that works for us.
Thank you for that, JJ. Does anyone else want to answer or contribute an answer to that question? Okay, so I have a question. So I know you all talked about some of the ways that you mitigated, theft when it comes to maybe having a vending space at like an exhibit hall or just in your store, your snack shop. And you've also talked about some of the ways that you've been able to do your job, but I want to kind of dig into the types of access tech and even some of the low tech that you all are using on a daily basis to, take care of some everyday activities or operations, to run your business. So can you talk a little bit about some of the alternative techniques and access tech that you're using to run your business on a daily basis?
Sure. So for BEP, one of the wonderful things we have is that BEP uses now, which I love, is the Square system. I know once upon a time, I think they were doing like the talking registers where everything had to be done manually, but now everything is on Square. And of course, with Square, you can put that right on an iPad. And of course, with an iPad, you have voiceover, which is a beautiful thing. And so my register is fully accessible, right, from the iPad. And the beautiful thing about that is the two of the girls that work with me, they were not voiceover users, but they also could not see the iPad. That's, I guess, the way I'll word it. And I taught them voiceover probably 20 minutes. And they're amazing on the register as well. Now I'm confident. And I mean, that has been honestly the best blessing about being able to do this job independently, is having that access to the Square system with voiceover. For my micromart, I use another technology to monitor it called 3 Square Market. And that's just done, I can access that from my phone, from my computer. So again, I still have the access to be able to monitor inventory and all of that just with the use of voiceover. So that's my big plus.
Thank you for that, Shelby. Anyone else want to answer?
I guess to piggyback off of that, the Square system has been pretty good. I definitely use it to like print out reports, and I can enlarge the print if I need to. It's definitely better than your typical register, which was voiceover at one time, and it definitely helps. Especially with the screen, like I can use pictures, which actually help me way better than just the words or just typing it on there. So it definitely helps as far as like pictures for me.
Well, this is a tech question. I can't leave it alone. So, um, do we use technology in our business? Yeah, just a bit. So, in addition to the payment things that were mentioned, we're actually going to be using Shopify POS as our in-person payment system this summer, which will let us finally do the tap to pay type stuff, which is very exciting. We're happy for that. In the day to day, so like I said, I have 2 other employees. So we are entirely a remote company. I'm in Michigan, Michael's in Oregon, Demasi's in Alabama. So we are about as far apart from each other as we can be. We communicate using Slack, which is a messaging and chat app that a lot of businesses use. That's our primary communication method. Like I said, we do payroll on Gusto, Gusto. We are connected. We have our shopping cart software online. We have QuickBooks for finances. I know I'm just rattling off a bunch of these, but all this to say that there's all sorts of different tech apps that we have found to use. I would say a couple that really jump out at me lately, using the image description apps like Be My AI, which is a part of Be My Eyes, and also, of course, the AI Chat GPT, that type of stuff. That has really helped us in marketing and visual design. So we've used that a lot lately. We used a program called Todoist for task management and assigning tasks. We use a program called Zendesk for our support ticket system. We have Invoice Ninja for invoices. So we really harness technology. If we find something that we think can help us or advance our business, we are going to give it a shot and see if it can fit into our workflow.
Thank you for that. And JJ, I want to stick with you for a second here. And Shelby and William, please feel free to jump in. But I'm glad that you mentioned that that the work that you do is remote, because a lot of times I will get questions around remote work, and the biggest thing that people will share is, well, hey, I want remote work because I am blind and I don't necessarily feel comfortable traveling, right? To the job, to a location, XYZ. Is it important to have adequate travel skills, even if you are someone who does work remote? And how essential are those skills in being successful in that area?
So, well, I can't speak for every position and job. I will say for us, it is still important because uh, all of us will travel to conventions that are local to us. So, Demasi was at NFB of Alabama, last month. We'll be at conventions on the West Coast as well. So it's important to have those travel skills and those soft skills because I don't, if I'm hiring an employee, I need you to be able to take care of yourself and to represent us in the best possible light if you're going to be out in public talking to people. So having those soft skills, having those travel skills, I'm not talking like super amazing ninja traveler that, you had to have graduated from a training center and all that type of stuff, but no, but at least being able to handle yourself. And, there are lots of competent travelers out there, and it's certainly something that I would look at and when it comes to hiring remote people.
Ninja travel skills is hilarious, by the way. Shelby, William, did you all want to answer that question? Okay.
I guess I covered it.
I was gonna say, I feel like he covered it, yes.
Sorry.
So Jen, I saw 2 questions in the chat.
So the first one was from Patrick Brown, and he wants to know, how do you all deal with transportation since you aren't able to drive? How do you get around?
That's a good question.
I'll let somebody else start this time.
I'll answer that. I guess in this area we have the system called Metro Access. So they're able to transport us to the location via you put it in a day in advance. And that kind of gets us around the Maryland, DC, Virginia area to your location in the beginning. It also takes you back to where you need to go. That's what we have in this area.
I think there's some strategery when it comes to this, right? Sorry, go ahead. All right, I'll go.
I think it's on you, JJ.
All right, I guess it's on me. I think there's some strategery when it comes into this as well, right? As far as just thinking about where you live, and I know you don't always have control over where you live, but being able to be somewhere that I can get to other places is important to me. So when I've looked at which cities I want to move in or live in, a lot of it's about, well, where can I go from here? Because we do travel a lot around the state. So it's important to me to be in an urban enough area that I can easily get to other cities using public transit. Rideshare is a huge part of it these days, but that can add up really quickly as well.
Yes.
Shelby, did you want to answer?
Yes, I
Okay.
definitely will. So, for me, I have usually a scheduled ride that I do in the mornings, and I have a neighbor that drives, then I also use Lyft, and it kind of just depends on the day of the week. I do pay my neighbor, though, comparable to what I would pay for the Lyft. So it's pretty much a flat rate I budget that I have to spend every day to get to work. And that's usually to my standard snack bar location, because everything else kind of feeds off of that. So I usually would start my day at the snack bar, even if I'm going to go stock the Micro Mart or stock my other location. And so I do that Lyft ride every morning. If I'm just going to do quick vending and it's stuff I already have, or not, I guess I don't have to transport a lot of product that day, then I'll just take an Uber or Lyft. If it's a day where I have to do a bigger transport where I'm moving sodas and things like that, then I do have a driver that I use for that specific stuff. And then as far as my afternoons, I take the bus home every afternoon to save money. So that's it.
Thank you. And yes, saving coins, saving money is important. So I completely relate to having different modes of transportation to and from work to save a dollar here and there. So I believe there was another question in the chat, Jen. So we'll take one more, and then I have one final question for our panelists before we close tonight.
Well, there was a question from Ramona, but I think that one we can do offline because
Okay.
it's not about this particular. But
Oh, okay.
it's okay. But no, but then Patrick also asked, he had a follow-up about he said, how do you deal with the supply logistics?
So I'll start for that one. For my micro mart, it's done a little bit differently than my, give me 1 second, y'all. I'm sorry, I'm gonna switch locations. For my micro mart though, it's done a little bit differently than my snack bar, but everything I purchase for the micro mart goes into a system called 3 Square Market. And so I'm able, like I said, to monitor that from my phone, my computer, wherever I'm at that time. And the way it works, I log in, I can see in real time transactions as they're being made. And I can also switch the report and just, go to my inventory itself. And as long as I'm logging in my inventory as I'm buying it, I can see that I have 8 honey buns left, 4 Snicker bars left, all of that. And that's how I know what product I'm going to transport, because as I mentioned, I have smaller storage where my micro marts and my vending are. And so my main storage is at my snack bar. So I always have to know, what do I need to take with me that day? So I use that 3 Square Market software. And then for the vending machines, the software is called Cantaloupe, but it does the same exact thing as 3 Square Market. It'll, track your products, track what's selling, and, be able to give you all of those numbers. And then inside the snack bar, I usually just walk around the store and, I'm feeling the shelves. Okay, I need Reese's, I need Lay's chips, and then that's how I know what I need to order.
So it's very similar for me, even though I'm in a completely different industry. We decided at some point to move our shipping to an outsourced warehouse. So we rent warehouse space where all of our product lives now. So I can log on right now if I wanted to, and I can see inventory counts for every item that we have in stock or out of stock. And then I can use that along with various reports to figure out, okay, if we're selling 3 of these in a week and we're down to 6, well, we should probably put in an order for new stuff. So we can pull up different reports and try to anticipate. It's never a perfect science, as my friends here would, I'm sure, tell me. Sometimes you run out of something before you thought you were going to because you have a run on it. But that's how I think the key is having as much information as possible, being able to know which items are in stock, which ones are in back order, and also having an idea with each of your suppliers what their lead time is. Because some products we can get in a few days, and some products it takes a few weeks to get replenished.
Hey, so I'm sorry. So with me, I have the Square system kind of take the inventory, and I kind of eyeball it as well. Like once I get down, say like the 3 muffins or 3 bagels, I put in an order, and it usually comes the next day with certain vendors. And with my coffee, that usually comes in 2 days. So when I get down to like 1 bag or 2 bags, I just reorder because I don't have too much in the coffee shop. But I kind of eyeball it, and like, okay, I'm down to this. Put more in the order list.
Awesome. Thank you all for that, for your answers. Jen, I saw a question in the chat, but it looked like it was multiple questions. So I don't know if we'll be able to get to all of the questions from that.
I did get a
One
good
person.
question from Jennifer asking, do businesses like the one you operate full-time, can people support themselves fully through them? And what tools do you handle business to use to do your taxes?
Anyone want to take
Okay, sure, why
take a
not?
shot at that?
Yeah. Well,
Thanks, JJ.
yeah, we are full time and we have employees. So to answer that question, yes. I mean, I definitely did odd jobs here and there, and I still will if there's a good. One of the cool things about being a business owner is if there is a contract opportunity, I do some accessibility testing. I could, if it pays well, I could make room for it if I want to, but I don't have to survive. Briefly on the business taxes, that was a thing that early on I learned I did not want to do myself, so I do pay an accountant at the end of the year. Like I said, I use QuickBooks for the day to day, but it's you're looking at, if you're a single owner LLC or whatever, you're looking at probably a business tax form of some sort. It's all doable. You could do it yourself if you have the accounting knowledge, but you start learning as a business owner what you want to pay someone else to do.
That
And
part.
yeah, that's not a blind thing. That's a I don't want to do it thing.
Yes, so I kind of take advantage of it two different ways. Currently in Georgia, well, I guess the model that's been operating in Georgia is that there is a financial institution that is our Georgia co-op, and we can pay them a monthly fee to do all of our accounting. And so, as still being new and learning the ropes, never having run a business before, as I'm figuring out, different software and things that are out there, I opted to go ahead and use the co-op, just to kind of get me through my first year of doing everything. And so they actually cut the payroll checks to my employees, handle all of that stuff. And as far as filing my taxes, I'm gonna be honest, I did it myself. And
Nice.
I mean, the IRS hasn't said anything, so I did it right so far, but I do actually plan next year. This was my first year and I didn't have a full year, because I guess it kind of would have only ran from August through December. So honestly, for next year's, I'm gonna probably pay somebody, because that's gonna have a lot more going on at that point. But I think it kind of depends on your comfort level, really.
I'm gonna go with I'm 100% using an accountant. They actually go into my register and pull all the numbers. They also have my information for my banking and everything. So they do everything. So that works out for me, and I love it that way. It's not as much as I thought it would be, so it's a good thing. If you can't do it, just have somebody else do it.
There you go. Well, I have one more question for you all before we get ready to close. So, what piece of advice would you give to someone who is listening who is considering either going into the BEP program or starting their own business?
All right, I guess I'll go. One piece of advice, there's many, but I think the one that I would want to impart tonight is recognize that being a business owner is about taking risks and taking chances. The payoff can be amazing, both financially and just in life, enriching your life. There's a high risk, high reward situation. You can do a lot of things to make those risks more calculated. So you're taking the right risks and not just any risk. So, get with people that have done this before, find mentors. I'm happy to talk to people about their ideas, because not every idea you have is a business. Sometimes they're just hobbies. but there are lots of great opportunities out there to become a business owner. And if you're willing to take that risk and you're willing to accept that adversity, it might pay off really well for you.
I agree with that. And one of the things I want to add to that is for the sake of time, told a quick story about, my journey. I got this facility, then I added this and I added this, and that's the happy version. But there were many challenges I had to overcome. And so, that's just, JJ already said it. Just don't be afraid to take risks and know that it's okay. Like you're not going to just start this business and make, $1 million your first year. And so just having, that understanding when you go into it, that there are going to be lots and lots and lots of challenges you're going to work through. I mean, I mentioned the part about, having to go through the inspections when the, state would come in. I didn't always get a good report, but, I pushed through, I corrected things. I talked to other blind vendors in the program. I mean, even still now, licensed, I still call other blind vendors for things. So and that's it. That's all there is to it. Network, network, network.
Keep it short and sweet. Just do your research before you get into any profession. Always say just do your research.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all, Shelby, JJ, William. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing all about your professional experience in the world of entrepreneurship. Before we go, is there anything that I know, JJ, you said you would share your contact information, but I wanted to open it up to see if there was anything you wanted to say before we close tonight.
Yeah, just thank you for the opportunity. I'm at JJ at atguys.com. If anyone has questions, feel free to do that. And that's also our website.
Awesome. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us this evening. If you have further questions, please email us at employment@nfb.org. That's employment@nfb.org. And I just want to thank all of the folks who were here tonight for this webinar. Thank you so much. And stay tuned. We will be back for our July webinar where we will feature some folks who are working in the field of STEM. So thanks, everyone. Have a good night.